This is a slugcat family. With 3 slug pups, it's a hassle for the parents to deal with. So, they prioritize on the oldest and youngest. This leaves their middle slug pup, Monk being the most neglected out of the 3. The problem is that Monk suffers with mental issues, that being intrusive thoughts of violence, which slowly lead to acting on those thoughts, as they were not taught any better. Monk's parents never caught notice, and Monk's siblings were too young to understand what was wrong with Monk. With the negligence of Monk's parents, and the fact Monk often was easily angered, one led to another, and during a storm, when the family was trying to cross using a pole as a bridge, Monk pushed Survivor due to intrusive thoughts. Those intrusive thoughts forming due to frustration at how slow their sibling was crossing, and the urge to make it across to not die. Of course, Monk soon realized what they had done, and began to feel guilt, even if none of the other family had seen that Monk was the reason. Survivor fell down to the whirlpool. The guilt was eating Monk up. So, with the thoughts rambling in Monk's head, that just wouldn't shut up, Monk jumped after Survivor. Monk searched and searched for Survivor, and eventually found their sibling. But Survivor hadn't forgotten what Monk had done, and out of petty revenge attacked Monk. This, however, infuriated Monk, who felt anger out of their siblings' actions. Monk's violent, intrusive thoughts whirling in their head, saying things like, "I finally find you, and this is the thanks I get," or "I wasted my time trying to find you just for you to still be mad over something I did." Monk's arrogant personality couldn't take Survivor's rejection of forgiveness, and with pure rage Monk killed Survivor. After that, Monk was on their own. With no other purpose now, they found things to please themselves with, like bothering the ecosystem. Something about killing enticed Monk's negative thoughts, and with no one to stop them, they were off killing away. Monk never even bothered dealing with the corpses. With all the remains of dead insects or unfortunate scavengers, it attracted many hungry fellows. And knowingly Monk's actions had impacted the food chain, with predators becoming an abundance. It certainly boosted the carnivorous plant life too, that it became common to find them all round. However, with all this death and carnage, the cycle system was struggling to keep up. Back with Survivor after they had respawned in the next cycle, were quite bewildered that their own flesh and blood could have done something so cruel. However, their shock of what Monk had done to them was put to a halt, as before their eyes was the carnage Monk had left behind. What a sight it was! Just absolute chaos. The ecosystem was completely out of whack. Survivor wondered who had done this, and so they followed the path of blood and death. What they found was Monk standing before a murdered reindeer, who had been trying to escape the worm grass that had grown exponentially, due to the corpses fertilizing it. Survivor only thought one thing at that moment, and that was to run. Survivor fled the premises, catching their panty breath. They could only hope Monk hadn't followed. As Survivor sat there, they felt eyes upon them. So, they quickly turned round. There, floating a bit above the ground, was a ghostly green slugcat. They introduced themselves as Saint. They didn't bother to ask Survivor their name, as they went on to explain how, when they were fighting some lizards and died, that when they were going to wake up next cycle, they found themselves here instead. Survivor knew at that moment that it must have been Monk's doing, that they were the reason why the cycles were all screwed up. Saint seemed to take that answer, and without warning lended Survivor some of their powers. This was all sudden for Survivor. Saint, however, said that they were unable to use their powers physically, and which is why they're lending it to Survivor, saying along the lines, "You'll put them to better use than I can at this moment." Survivor wanted to protest against what Saint had done, when they suddenly vanished, and their survivor could see Monk approaching not too far. Survivor panicked and tried fleeing again. However, this time Monk caught up with them and tackled their sibling. Survivor could see the hunger in Monk's eyes. As Monk, during the trouble they had been causing, hadn't bothered to find anything to feast on. Survivor tried to reconsider with Monk. They still hoped. There was some good in Monk, or were they wrong? Monk, out of savage hunger, ate their own sibling alive. Survivor wailed in agony. Survivor suffered slowly as they were torn apart. That very then they realized how far gone Monk truly was. As for Monk, well, the new diet of cannibalism wasn't doing well with Monk's body, but Monk couldn't give a crap, and actually even enjoyed the taste of slugcat flesh, or maybe that was just extreme hunger. But in the end, they didn't care. And so, the fight between the siblings ongoed every cycle. Monk kills and eats Survivor. Survivor kills Monk, on and on. And after all that, was what broke the cycle's balance for good. Thereupon the two siblings' very eyes were various of slugcats. Survivor could even see Saint again floating with a light red ghostly slugcat. With one scratched eye. The slug cats were all confused, having been brought all here. Monk decided to escape before Survivor could stop them, and so Survivor was left with the eyes of the new strangers. This sparked a plan in Survivor's eyes. So Survivor greeted each slugcat and explained of the issue. Many were shocked about Monk's doings, and so they agreed to be against Monk for ruining this world. Survivor now, with allies, learnt each of their names. The new red ghost was Hunter, the chubby one was Gourmand, the purple one with white dots on their tail was Spearmaster, the one with a blue body and pink frills was Revelet, the one with half their face scarred burnt, and holding a scavenger mask was Artificer, and the one farther away, with a weird red grin and lashy eyes, was Inv. The first step of Survivor's plans was asking what the hell those powers were that Saint gave them, and how to use them. Saint apologized for not explaining further, so they slowly explained Survivor step by step. Survivor still didn't quite get it. However, it was better than nothing. And so Survivor tested their abilities, or trained with the other slugcats, or whilst Monk continued their carnage, only ever so often interfering with the group. It was a stalemate for a while. That is when Survivor discovered of the holes in the cycles. Those open spaces to where was a boundless void of nothing out of the world. Survivor knew what they had to do, and so schemed and planned with the others on reading of Monk once and for all. It went as planned. The others would lure Monk in, and to which at the right moment where there's a gap in time, Survivor will execute Monk. With low chances that Saint had warned Survivor. Out of sheer luck it had worked. Monk now gone, they could all rest in peace. However, Survivor felt uneasy, as they swore they could still feel Monk's eyes upon them. Survivor wasn't alone, as Saint and Hunter could sense it too. Now back with Monk, who's currently been banished into the out of bounds, was seething with rage, the voices in their head running them mad. It was frustrating for Monk, being able to see what was happening everywhere just in a third-person perspective, forced to see through the screens of the world they had been kicked out of. Not only that, but how the void ate away at their body, their skin turning all black and gooey. It was unbearable. Monk watched the others from out of bounds, in utter hatred. Monk could not stand for this any longer. They had to escape this imprisonment. And as Monk schemed, their glaring eyes fell upon one particular floating screen. It was their family, their mother and father, and little sibling. All happy, all gleeful even in this disastrous world. They were safe under the slugcat colonies. This, Monk thought, this is outrageous. Monk roared in fury. Once Monk escapes this hellhole, they're going to teach their family a lesson for being so neglectful to them. And what Monk desired to do set into play. As they forced themselves out of the endless void finally, their Monk could see their family out on a stroll. They called out quietly, their voice hoarse and raspy. The youngest was first to notice as they heard Monk's voice. Excitement at knowing their sibling who had fallen after Survivor into the whirlpool long ago was alive still. That excitement died down though, as the young green slug pup saw before them a monster, hardly even Monk, horrid looking, with black goop infesting their skin, with dark malicious eyes of death and a sharp toothy grin. It was then that Monk's parents saw before them as well. Oh, how massive Monk had become. It was like a giant. Monk's large size was due to the void messing and warping their body in painful ways, is how to which Monk now took on this new appearance. Before the family could do anything, they were slaughtered by Monk, Monk's little green sibling being first, their bodies turning into mushy black goop. That is when Survivor, their group, had found Monk, as they had heard the wailing screams of the family, before they had been turned into a pile of sludge. Survivor hadn't even gotten to reunite with their family. It was too late. In anger, Survivor wanted to hurt Monk, but they knew it was wiser to not. That was when Monk spoke boldly, mainly due to how taller they stood upon the others now. Kneel down upon me, or you will die like they had. Monk spoke bashfully. The others, from what they had seen what Monk had done, did so. However, Survivor would not stand for it. Monk, however, had expected Survivor to do that. As being stuck watching the others for so long, they had learnt many things from that. Kneel now, my sibling, or I won't bring our precious family back, Monk threatened. Monk used their siblings' weakness against them, and reluctantly so Survivor kneeled before their tyrant of a sibling. Monk had a crude grin. See now how they ruled over this domain. How powerful they are now. Ironic. Monk could still remember when Survivor would laugh at how weak they were. Look how the tables had turned now. Monk imprisoned each of Survivor's friends, each in their own cell personally made based on how weak or strong they were, who posed a threat and who not. Oh, and also Monk kept in most hidden away, not because they were flirty and weird, but because of their eggs. Those eggs with two red streaks across it. That was a danger Monk knew to hide away. At last, Monk ruled over everyone, engaging in fear-mongering to prevent them from rebelling against their rule. Monk at least kept to their promise on bringing back theirs, and Survivor's family, much to their older siblings' relief. Survivor, however, was still surprised that their family was alive again, and couldn't help but ask how. As long as the goop of their remains stays, I can rebuild them back. Though their consciousness that had been trapped in the void will probably be scarred now. Monk simply told their curious older sibling. After that, Monk walked off. They had better things to do now. Now that they had full control over their world. What's better than ruling my world? Monk thought for only a short moment. Ruling other worlds, Monk had concluded in their mind. That is Monk's new goal now. Monk now had planned to explore beyond their domain, and out into the unknown. That would conclude the end of the unfortunate tale of a slugcat family.